had entitled Ready, Set, Go. And today, as I've been thinking back over the last several weeks, I thought we needed a sermon for the next 2 weeks that it's ready, set, rest. The end of the year has happened. We're into the new year. It's February already. The Roses are back from Florida. They go to, oh, they're clapping. The Roses, they pile up all their vacation and they take like most of January off. And so we hate it that the weather was not very good this year in Florida. Not much, but we do hate it a little bit for you. But it's February already. And talking so much about going and serving and jumping in and being all in. It's a new year, here we go. I think I failed you a little bit because I'm wondering if I should have started with the idea of resting first. Because when you go and serve and get all in, and you do without being first, it doesn't lead to really good places. When my grandkids come over, those who have electronics, they will always come to our house, which I don't understand why they have to have their electronics with them because Lisa and I are so fun as we sit in our recliners and watch them. But they have their gadgets, and almost every single time, their games are on 3% battery level. 1%, 5%. They never come to our house and it's like, hey, Papa, hey, I've got, my games are all charged up. It's always, do you have a cord? Do you have, and I have these cords in a drawer where next to my chair because I know if they come over, their games are going to be depleted. Have you ever been talking on the phone to someone and you just lose the call and then their spouse calls you and it's them and they say, hey, my phone went dead. It happens all the time, and you know you can tease them. I can tease my grandkids like, why don't you ever charge your stuff? And I can laugh with somebody who their phone has died because they forgot to charge it. But today I'm really talking about a pretty serious issue, not about your phones, but about your internal battery. What happens when your internal battery is at 1%? You are at 1% because you haven't taken the time to recharge. That part is not funny. It's not funny when anxiety and fear and worry and shame drains our battery and we have nothing left. And yet we keep pushing ourselves to function. And so many people in my family and in my extended family and in church and friends and pastors that I know and work with, they're hoping to stretch that 1% a little bit further. And if you're at all like me, I tend to be an expert at prioritizing other people's needs before mine. And we pour out our time, and we pour out our energy, and we pour out our heart, and we give our heart to serving others while we ignore the warning signs that are going on in our own souls. If you know what I'm talking about, say amen. Yeah, okay. I thought so. Have you ever had that tight feeling in your chest? Or maybe for no reason you have this irritability creeping in. And the way your passion for living, it almost feels like life is just a checklist. And you just get up in the morning and you just check your things off. And I'm thinking of some of you young moms who are in the congregation today, and how, because as I was writing this message, I kept thinking of you, and I kept seeing your faces, and I'm saying, Lord, I don't want to tell the people something that is impossible for them to do. I'm thinking of students and who have very little time, whether it's college students or high school students. And I'm thinking of people who are working long hours, 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week. And as I'm writing this, I'm thinking of you. And I'm thinking, how can I tell the people on Sunday that if you have a low battery warning, you can't function indefinitely on empty? The truth is, God didn't design us to live at 1%. God did not intend for us to live from a place of depletion. That's why I started this service saying, yeah, I think I jumped the gun on the ready, set, go. I think I should have started with ready, set, rest. Because I've been saying to you, come on, all in, serve. We got training going on, and this training, and come on, we've got to go. And it is great. It's great to serve. Part of how we love Jesus is serving, and part of how we live our lives to go live and love like Jesus, which is our discipleship definition, is going out into the world. Jesus said, therefore, go make disciples. But not before you recharge. Not before you recharge. How do you lean into God's rhythms of renewal? What I'm talking about today is really creating a space for Jesus to refill what exhaustion and self-reliance has drained from you. I want you to ask yourself, am I scrambling to make life work with 1%? Or am I embracing the invitation to connect deeply with the one who can sustain you through it all? If I'm honest with you and you are honest with me, I would say a lot of us run on low battery mode. A lot. But God doesn't desire us to live at 1%. He calls us to live from a place of strength. He calls us to live from a place of peace. He calls us to live from a place of spiritual overflow. That's why prioritizing rest is not just important, it's essential. For Thanksgiving last year, we went over to Chad and Carolina's house. And when we walked in, I think his dad was sitting out in a little, what is it? What? You call it shalom, but it's a little sunroom. And they call this sunroom shalom. I'm going to talk about that next week. But shalom is the word for peace, but our translation of the word peace is so weak compared to shalom. I'll talk about that next week. But all around there, they have comfortable chairs out there, and they have all their Bibles and their books that they're reading. It's their place that they recharge. It was a place of, I felt like when I was sitting in there and I looked around and I saw Carolina's Bible in Spanish and then a Bible in English and books that they were reading, I felt like like I was in a holy place. Because it was a place of shalom. It was a place where I knew this is where they talk to Jesus. This is where they intentionally get up and have a cup of coffee and be with Jesus. I think coffee is essential to being with Jesus. Sorry, some of you probably drink that other stuff, but tea. Prioritizing time with Jesus is essential. Rest, listen to this, and guys, especially guys, listen to this. Rest is not selfish indulgence. You are not being selfish if you rest. It's an invitation. It's one of God's gifts to us. When he created the world, you all know what he did on the seventh day, don't you? He rested, that's right. And it's not because he needed to rest. God did not need to rest. What he was doing was showing us how essential it is for us to take a break. That it's essential for us to recharge and to be able to fulfill living and loving like him. My day off or my Sabbath is defined by not doing something, but it's recharging and refocusing. So I want to talk really quickly about what does it mean to rest? Not just physically, not just emotionally, but spiritually. What does it mean to rest? Soul rest, like not just taking a nap, but true soul rest is a gift from God, and it's designed to fill us up so that we can lead and love other people well. When we serve from a place of spiritual overflow, we don't just survive, we thrive. Our youngest daughter, Kayla, she has three small kids, three young kids, and one of them, who's right there, will be 2 years old this month, and she's running on exhaustion. Now, ladies, do you know what that means? Do you know what that feels like? Hannah, you're there too. Lauren Dehoff, with their two little kids. Some of these young moms are absolutely running on exhaustion. And for them, a Sabbath just means keep the kids quiet so I can take a 30-minute nap. And sometimes it is just a break like that. But I want to encourage you to take those moments of rest and not just rest physically, but consciously rest your emotions and rest spiritually. Because it's a gift from God. Rest is a gift from God. When we serve from a place, when we serve our families, when we work, when we serve other people, when we come to church and we serve, and we're serving out of a place of spiritual overflow, we don't just survive, we thrive. So, how do we recharge? Number one, prioritize true rest. Prioritize rest. Biblical rest is more than physical recovery. It's finding peace and restoration in God's presence. Jeremiah 31, and we'll look at just a little passage in just a minute. But in Jeremiah 31, here's what's happening. Jeremiah is writing. He's a prophet. And he's using an allegory in his writing. And he is saying like the importance of rest. This is how he describes it. It's a woman who desperately needs a place of safety with her man. Okay? So it's a woman that is tired. She is exhausted. The allegory is the church or Israel. Israel is exhausted. And Israel has been alone, and she's weary, and she just needs to be, I'll use this, home with her man, okay? Because she knows that in the presence of being home with her family, she will be safe. She will feel comforted. And so Jeremiah says, and she's looking for her man. And when she finds the man, Jeremiah says in verse 25, verse 30, chapter 31, the man says, I will refresh the weary and satisfy the faint. I will refresh the weary and satisfy the faint. The picture here is the church is tired. The people of God are tired. And they come and they come together in worship, and they're trying to long out, and we're singing goodness of God, and we're singing build my life, and we're saying, I need thee every hour, oh precious Lord, oh, we know you paid it all. Your goodness is running after me, and we sing, and we're trying to be in his presence, and God is saying, come closer. I will refresh the weary and satisfy the faint. That's what I do. That's spiritual renewal. That's the idea of worship. It's us giving everything that we possess out of us into him, and he accepts us, and he says, I will refresh the weary and satisfy your heart. Just come to me. Matthew chapter 11, Jesus says it this way, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke, the yoke of a cattle. Take my yoke upon you. It's a double yoke. If you can picture, I'm the cow. And Jesus is here, and he's saying, hey, come to me and put my yoke on and learn from me. So when the master is turning to the right, you're learning from him. Because when you learn from him, you don't get to 1%. You let him lead you. You're wearing his yoke. You take the yoke upon me and learn from me. For I am gentle and I'm humble in heart. And you will find rest for your soul. Because he wants our yoke to be easy. He wants the burden that we have, he wants it to be light. He doesn't want us to run on 1%. We cannot trade moments, this one might sting, we cannot trade moments of binge watching something on Netflix or scrolling on social media. We cannot trade those times for renewal that only comes through time spent with Jesus. That may just give your mind a break, like if you just are scrolling. That may give your mind a break. It may make you laugh if you come across the funny reel, but it doesn't give our soul a break. Choosing to rest in his presence is not a passive decision. It's an active, intentional choice to prioritize what really matters. It means we are deliberately seeking to be filled and restored by the Creator, knowing that nothing else will satisfy us. So I want you to ask yourself, what areas of your life are feeling hurried or stressed or self-reliant? Ask yourself, how can I intentionally invite God into those areas today? Choose to make space for him, knowing that his presence brings the renewal your soul is longing for. If this is our only time of building your soul you'll live at 1% or maybe 20%. But in that day, in a daily time of spending time with God, choose to do that. Number 2, give yourself permission to say no. We live in a culture that celebrates busyness, but God calls us to steward our time and energy faithfully. And saying yes to everything, whether extra programs or daily obligations or serving opportunities, it can leave you depleted. And sometimes God's best for us requires us to say no. I've been in ministry a long time, as you guys know, and over the course of 40 years, I learned very early and painfully that a lot of times people will come to church and they'll get active and they'll start serving and then they'll leave. And one of the things that I discovered is oftentimes they leave because they don't know how to say no to things and they're so committed and they just say, I can't say no, so I'll just leave and go find another church. I want to go to a larger church where I can just go hide. I want to go to a place that I don't feel guilty on a Sunday morning because they're saying, would you sign up for this or sign up for that? Sometimes, friends, God's best requires us to say no. Listen to Luke chapter 10, verses 40 to 41. I think I have it on the screen. Is it? Yeah. But Martha was distracted. You guys know this story. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made because Jesus and the disciples were coming to dinner. And she came to him and she said, Lord, they're in their living room. Lord, do you not care that my sister Mary has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her to help me. Have you ever felt like that? Why am I the only one doing things? Tell them to help me. And the Lord answered her and said, Martha, Martha, you are worried and upset about so many things. But Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. As I was looking at this, we live in a very Martha world. We praise Martha. As a matter of fact, I tell churches a lot, and I tell pastors a lot. It is so. I have some pastors who say, "I don't have time to take a day off," or "Man, I'm working 7 days a week. I can't take the time." And their church says, "Our pastor works so hard. We just love that. He works so hard. We're so proud of our pastor because he works so hard. And he just doesn't even have time." And so one of the 10 Commandments is remember the Sabbath, right? Is that what? So do you think the churches would, what about this? We're so proud of our pastor. He lies all the time, and he commits adultery, and he has all these other gods before God. We're so proud of him. Why is it that we think that working nonstop and not taking a day off is something to be proud of, when even in the 10 Commandments, it says, hey, take a day and take a Sabbath. We live in this Martha world where we feel like the busier we are, the more holy we are. Now, some of you might be thinking, Eric, I can't believe you're really giving permission here to say, no, we're a small church and we need lots of volunteers. And listen, friends, God will supply all of our needs. I don't want people saying yes to serving without first saying yes to being. I don't want people doing if they're not being. And I hope you want the same thing for me. I would hope one of the things that you should demand from me is before on Sunday I speak to you about Jesus, that I've talked to Jesus about you. I think you have a right to ask your pastor, have you been with Jesus this week? The elders, it was Eric Jurin, who's in the streaming today. Eric's not streaming, but he's running it. Eric, in our elders meeting, we were talking about Sabbath, and he said, when do you take a Sabbath? Yes, that's the fair question. That's the good question. You should want to know, because I can be consumed with saying yes. And we miss the opportunity to sit at his feet and experience the refreshment and the renewal he offers. This is challenging, and we need to get this right. Are we choosing the good portion, our time with God and alignment with his will, or are we overwhelmed by obligations that pull us away from him? Many of us, including myself, need to say no to the good things and yes to God things. Not everything that demands our attention aligns with God's calling, and discerning the difference is so essential for a life of faithfulness and rest. Before becoming pastor here, I was on a lot of boards, some nonprofit boards, and I stepped off a few of those because I didn't need another committee or a board that I needed to serve on, because I had to kind of list out my priorities. And if you were going to become one of those top priorities, I had to get some other things off that list. And the last thing I'll say, anchor yourself in God's presence and not your performance. Anchor yourself into God's presence and not your performance. Too often, we tie our worth to how much we accomplish, or what are our achievements, our productivity, our results. But God does not measure our value by what we do. Our identity isn't found in our performance. It's found in being a child of God. It's not in what we do. Because people might serve up here or play a piano or play a guitar, their worth is not greater than you who sing. Our worth is not tied to our performance. The elders of the church are not greater than the children ministry volunteers, because we are all children of God. And our worth is in who we are in Christ, not by what we do for Christ. And Jesus calls us to a life of abiding. John chapter 15, I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he will bear much fruit. But apart from me, you can do nothing. Think of that. Apart from him, we can do nothing. Not a little, not something, nothing. The life and fruitfulness we long for cannot be produced through our own effort or skill. It flows only from this deep, dependent relationship with Jesus. When we anchor ourselves in his presence and not our performance, there is an incredible peace that comes and abides in our souls. This, in John chapter 15, this is an invitation from Jesus, and it is, abide in me, and I'll abide in you. Remain in me, I'll remain in you. It's this invitation to God's strength. Apart from me, you can do nothing, but with me, with me, I can do some great things through you. Your worth isn't in what you achieve. Your worth isn't in what your job is or where you live or what your title is. Your worth is in who you are in Christ, being rooted in the one who gives life. Friends, God did not design us to live at 1% with red lights flashing. He invites us to stop scrambling and start abiding, to intentionally recharge in his presence. I want to spend some time, as I wrap this up, I want to spend some time of wooing the Father, because he's waiting to restore your soul. And there's some today that your souls are weary and you're tired. And maybe even throughout the sermon, you've kind of felt this little panic go on, or a little tightening in your chest, or something that just kind of flashed like, ooh, I'm not at peace right now. A couple weeks ago, I taught you some breathing prayers. I want to teach you another one today. And so if you have something in your hands, you can just kind of set that aside. And what I want you to do is just, we're going to do a breathing prayer. I'm going to slip over to the piano. But here's the prayer. Restore, that's what you're going to breathe in. Restore my soul. And breathe out. Restore my soul. Just kind of sit there. You don't have to say it out loud. Just in your heart, just kind of in your mind, just restore my soul. Just keep doing that. Restore